know them, but you've been told them all your life as a Christian, right? So just think, how many of the Ten Commandments do you know? I got about 7 of them, but they weren't even in order. So there's a way to learn them. So that's one thing. And I did that one time with a group of ministers too. People had been, Bible scholars and everything, and some of them got it right because they had ways of remembering. The first 4 have to do with God, and the rest of them have to do with community and relationship. So there's a way to remember them. I just want to share a little bit about, I was telling her, the class that I'm teaching is called Missional Ecclesiology. Big word that means church, the way you do church. So missional is doing it in a mission sense, doing church and missionally. So you guys are doing something missionally where it's not high structured church where you're sitting in the room over there, the sanctuary, everything's ordered. So missional is more of an outreach type of a thing. Mission means being sent. Apostolic means being sent to. So that's where I'm coming from then. So we're going to look at the factors. A lot of it has to do with how do movements get started. And when Christ came on the scene, and then the apostles came on the scene, and then Paul came on, all of a sudden there was this boom, there was this big expansion of the growth. It just came as things started rolling there. So we're going to look at how does that get started there? How do we start making disciples? Who knows what the Great Commission? Tell me the Great Commission. Matthew 28. Go into all the world.
Preach the gospel.
Okay, a lot you guys got to review about being church here. Is we got a Great Commission that we're supposed to live by. We should know that by heart, right? And then the other thing is in John 20:21, it says, "As the Father has sent me, so I send you." So how did the Father send the Son? Let's just illustrate it. The Father sent the Son from, let's say, that's heaven. Okay? That looks, we don't actually know what that looks like, and except for what John said in Revelation. You got a picture of it, and we know that's what, God's there happening. So God's there, the Son is there, and the Holy Spirit is there too. All there. Always has been. It's eternal. It has gone from eternity this way to eternity this way. It's always been. But God sent the Son to earth. Right? God sent the Son to earth. Totally different world here. This is a world we don't even understand. It's so beyond us. If this was how much knowledge there is in our world here, that's how much we know about heaven. Because God is so big and so immense. We just know a tiny bit about everything that could be of God there. So Jesus is sent from here to here. He comes from where? He comes from this world. Let's say he comes from this culture, the God culture. Totally different than this culture down here, but he gets sent down into our world. And that's contextual. That's the big word, contextual. So he came down into this world, into our context. That's where the big word, everybody gets all funny about it. Contextual. It's like, oh, I don't know if we should do that because that sounds like it's something from Satan. Well, that's contextual. But contextual is what God did. He went from this context to this context, and he brought his Son in here as what? As a tiny little baby that pooped his pants. Right? Pooped his pants, and that's where he was. Came down to us. That's where we get started here. So we get started with this story of how the expansion of the church came. It all started with, right there, with the baby that came down. Jesus came down, and then it moved this way. Where did it move first? He came down into this world here, was totally what? Totally Jesus was in a Jewish community, right? So for 30-some years, he learned that community. He was totally Jewish in all sense of the way. His mother brought him up. This 13-year-old girl who had a baby brought this baby into the world. This baby Jesus even to the world. So that's where it started. So this movement that began, the bigger word here is, I use some of these words in seminary there just to show them I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I don't use them here, and I don't share them around because I don't want to just use them to say this is what I know from seminary, show you how smart I am. But these words, it's the incarnational missional impulse. This is what happened here. So it's like, one guy used it, says it's like Jesus sneezes. What happens when you sneeze when you got a cold? Everybody gets it, right? Yeah, everybody gets it. So when Jesus sneezes, boom, it starts to happen. So it goes first into this Jewish context. That's where our heritage starts in. So we make this symbol there. So that's where Christianity first came into. It started in this context there with Jesus. And if many things would have taken place, that would have been our whole Christianity. It would have been messianic. The Jews believed in God. They believed that there was going to be a baby coming, a person that was going to be coming to become their Savior. But if it only stopped there, that would have been it. But it wasn't. So when it came from there, it went out because there was 12 apostles, and then later on there was another guy named Paul. He and Peter were the big instrumental in bringing that gospel message out into the world. That sneeze, that virus that spread around the world. Really, it made such a big impact. But it came out into here and started some little churches out there. But first, these were communities of Jewish people. So these were Jewish people, and most of this was done by Peter. All of this was done kind of Peter's world. And then a little bit later, then Paul came onto the scene, and then boom, it struck out, and it even went further. This is that sneeze that's happening here. So Paul comes into this world here, and then he starts making these churches around out in Asia Minor and other places. So he starts spreading the gospel there. And then what happens here is that when Paul comes into this world here, they start doing it very different than the Jewish way. The Jewish way here was that in order to be a believer in this Jesus here, you had to be Jewish. That's what it was right here. If you wanted to be a believer, you had to be Jewish. Then it went out here to Paul, and there was something that happened here between Peter and Paul in Acts 13. Acts 13 here, Peter has a vision of pigs in the blanket. All right? It was unforbidden food. Yeah. You couldn't do it. You eat that, touch it, or do anything with it, you're ritually unclean then. That always bothered me. It's like, what is this? Just for you, because you believe that way, you're ritually unclean. For anybody else here, if I would say, I'm ritually unclean, it's like, big deal. It doesn't bother you at all. But for them, it made a big deal because he was ritually unclean. So you could not go into these houses. You could not eat the food. You could not socialize with Gentile people out here, these Gentiles. These are the Jewish communities, and that's why he went to, that's where his ministry was. But then he went into a house of Cornelius, a Gentile. And then here's where the pigs in the blanket were. And then he went in here. God told him that, don't call him impure, what I call pure. And that his mind starts changing. So as he starts going further into this world here, he starts sitting down and eating bacon and other things. And he starts having fellowship with Gentiles. Right? He starts having fellowship with Gentiles on that way. Paul has been going out into Asia Minor, into Galatia, Corinthians, Ephesians, those other places that he started churches all around here. And then, let's say this is Galatia. This is what's happening here in Galatia. Okay. Peter takes a trip there because these Gentiles are coming to faith, but they're not doing it this way. And that's a big problem. Big problem. So Paul and Peter and the big wigs from there come out and they see what's going on here, and then the whole story of Acts 15 takes place. Acts 15 is when they says, this isn't right. If these people here want to be believers in Jesus, they have to do it this way. And then Paul says, no, they do not. These people can develop a Christianity that looks Galatian, Corinthian, Ephesians, any other place there. If you want to have here a Christianity that looks like this, you can do that. That's fine. That's why there's Messianic believers. They accept Jesus as the Messiah. So that's what happens there. When you come out here, Acts 15 says we should not make it difficult for those coming to faith that to have to do it our way. So James, the brother of Jesus, says, no, they don't. We should not make it difficult. So these people out here can start having Christianity that looks like their culture. It doesn't look like the Jewish culture that they were told to. Now you can see that theme here that comes to the United States here. We get told here by people from over in Europe that if you want to be Christian, you got to look like us in Europe that are bringing you the message. They're doing this. They're doing hegemony. Hegemony is telling you what you should do and how you should live your Christian life. They impose it on you. And that's what they did here. But that was totally mixed. We could get into a whole topic here of how that message got mixed up with colonialism, imperialism, genocide. They basically wanted to take everything that was native out of us so that we could be assimilated and become into the white Western world. We had to get rid of this Indian problem. The way to do it was to put them in boarding schools in the smallest little age and then let them release them at 18 when they have no idea who they are culturally. So all of that was part of that world there. So this is what happened here. So this kept going until it came over to us. It kept spreading. It was the biggest impact of it was like, someone would say it's like sowing seed. You know what sowing seed is? It doesn't mean to get a needle and thread and put seeds together. Okay? It means that you take seed in your hand and go like that, and you throw it out there, and it grows. And this is the main thing. You plant the seed of Jesus. You don't impose all of your ecclesiology, the way you do church, onto a different people. Okay? You need to let the seed of the gospel germinate. And in this area, Galatians and Corinthians and all these other places, it germinated there and then it created something. And that is why the gospel spread so fast and so prominent, because it was taken away from this way of doing it. And then when we got past that, it spread like wildfire. It just kept going and going. So sowing the seed. So as the Father has sent me, so I send you. The sending thing is all throughout the gospel. God sends the Son sends the Spirit, the Son sends out the 12 in pairs of 2 to spread the gospel, that kind of thing. So the big words here is that our theology, the way we spread this seed, is informed by our methodology, the way we do it. So we have to do it in a way here. That's why it spread so rapidly, because it was broke out of this bounds right here. Now, I really just want you to see, okay, this is USA. This is the way it was done to us, okay? When we break out of this, the way they told us to do it, it will boom, it will explode again into the Native American culture where we can develop a Christianity that looks like us. That's where the next explosion is coming. And that's what Nate's is all about. That's what I work with. And Leah has been a part of some of these things, and these guys here with InterVarsity, they've been involved in that, is that we have to do things like InterVarsity Nations. We have to do things like that where it never existed before. It was always this InterVarsity white Western approach to discipleship. Now it's, okay, we're opening it up now, and now more people can come in there. So that's one little thing there. Let's see how I get this out. Come off with it. Shoot. We'll try to mess it up there more. The things that I have right here is that as the baby Jesus came into the world, what happened here is that how could it then happen if they know that it spread this way? And now we get to the era of missionizing the world. Let's say Europe has got the gospel now, and they're going to missionize the world. And the way they do it is what? Okay, they go to Africa. Let me try to draw Africa here. They come here from here, and let's say they're Lutherans. And Lutherans are probably the biggest, they're the biggest denomination that is the most white, okay, across the country. So the Lutherans here got missionaries, and they go down to Africa down here, and here they got churches that look like this. They're steepled, they have the big pointed roofs. Why do they have big pointed roofs?
So the snow will slide
and
off.
Snow, okay? In Europe, you get that kind of weather. So they have these big pointed roofs. So what kind of ecclesiology they do to us down here? Let's say consider us, we're the black Africans now. They come down here and they bring that whole style with all their formality, with all their robes and all their liturgy, and they plant that instead of planting that. They don't plant the seed and let it germinate into something that is going to flower and grow. Once colonialism finally left over there, it grew like crazy. These churches over here now have changed the Methodist Church. I don't know if you know that. A big part of that here is 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, the Methodist Church voted that we'll stick to the traditional way of viewing the discipline that says homosexuality and those kind of lifestyles are contrary to Scripture. And they voted that would stay the same, even though there's a lot of inclusiveness now. LGBTQ people, that was becoming a big part of the Methodist Church, but mostly in the United States. But over here, they're very conservative yet, and that's where most of the votes came to change that, or to make it stay. So there's been a big uproar in that. And people are saying that there could be a big problem with this as we go forward, is because very conservative here. The church may come up and just split. People are going to stay on one side or the other, those that want to be conservative, those that want to. Probably going to happen. The UMC is going to stay the same, but over here, people are going to leave, and things are going to happen. That's what's happening now. The Methodist Church in the Rio Grande Valley here, it's called the Rio Grande Valley Conference, they lead the whole country, the whole world really, in Methodism, as the fastest declining conference in the nation. This conference right here. So these, it's a hemorrhaging that's happening out there right now. These churches are just losing members upon members upon members. So things really have to change, and we have to get back to this here. We have to get back to reaching people where they're at. And the way that's going to happen, just another last thing I'll put in here, is the way that's going to happen, and no movement has ever happened. Like the spread of the initial gospel that spread out here, it happened because of this. Apest. Anybody know what that means? We do. It's in Ephesians. Ephesians 1:6. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds or pastors, and teachers. Grace was given that these would happen. So people were given these things. These are the things that people were given in the church. And that's why this. Paul was an apostle. Prophets, the evangelists, all of those made that spread and made it go out. And once they get established, then shepherds and teachers can come in and take care of those areas and shepherd and teach there. But this is one of the main forces for the spread of the gospel is those part there. APE. That's the big part that makes it happen there. So apostles have their part. Some people, in some denominations, they really hold some people up and say, you're our apostle. You're our leader. We look to you. And every word that you say hinges on what we do, and don't make a move without you. It's really, really controlling sometimes. That's a lot of pressure on somebody. But apostles, if we were to see like Paul, let's just say Paul. He's now going to be, he's an apostle. He goes out, but what does he do? He builds churches. He starts churches. He helps train churches. He does all of that. He doesn't like he sits behind a desk and making it all happen. He's out there making it happen. He's this big A apostle that's making everything happen there. Then you got the prophets. Prophets are those that we need to listen to because they listen to God. They listen to God and they speak the words of God. So people that are really in touch and that are spiritual in our churches, in our denominations and whatever, even right here, there's somebody that has that gift because grace was given and these are a part of every group together. So people here have those gifts. So we have to find them and use those. Those are the apostles and those prophets who listen to God. They know God's heart, and they have that relationship that we need between the world here and with God. The other one, the evangelists. The evangelists here, you guys are kind of all evangelists. If you've gone out there, they're the recruiters. Yeah, you guys should be, if you were making your living on it right now by every member that you brought in here, you probably have to go broke because it's not filling up the place here. So we got to really, that has to be our responsibility. If it's good news, why isn't this place full? And I don't get into this at this session here, but what is good news to this community? Is it a church like this on the other end of this building that is reaching this community? Is it this group here that is reaching this community? There's some things that's got to happen in this group here where we have to come up and we have to find out, okay, what is our purpose? What is our purpose? And what are our goals for this ministry here? And what action steps that we do to make this continue on? Is it just a social group where we're just meeting? We have a couple, we sing on a drum, we do a little bit here, or is it to spread the gospel as a sneeze to everyone? So the other one, we get shepherds, pastors, or teachers. This has been the only way now across the country that the church has been done. We've been leaving out this here as far as church growth. We need to get back, and we need to have all of these be a part of our ministries along the way. That has to be a part for our ministries to grow, because you just can't do it with just this, and you got to have it, just can't do it with that. It's got to be a unified thing. So we have to have somebody here. We're going to have somebody who's going to be the apostle, the sent ones. Just starting this ministry with Brian and Leah here, they are the sent ones. And this couple over here, they're the sent ones. They want to do this work. They go out and they minister. So, but we got to have that part of it here. We have to spend the time and have that relationship with God. So with that we know what God's telling us what to do. When I started a ministry back in Michigan, back in 96, there was no contextual anything. It was just me and a couple guys, and we had this idea that we wanted to start a ministry. So we really had to depend on ourselves and be sensitive to what God is saying to us. And God was saying that there isn't a ministry to the Indian population in Grand Rapids in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's just not there. But there are lots of natives there that are not being reached. So 3 of us got together and we prayed, and then we says we got to find a way to make that happen. And it isn't doing it this way, that way of keeping it one direction, or the USA way. It is a way of planting that seed in that group there and letting that grow and grow and grow. So that's what we did. Then we were the evangelists. That group that we met there, when we opened the doors, because we had done our work beforehand, is that we had 80 people show up. Imagine if you guys did that work here, and all of a sudden the car lot just fills up, and all of a sudden you got now like 80 baby Christians here that you guys have to minister to. Because you are the believers, so you have to be the ministers to those that don't know. So that's what we got to do. So it's pretty heavy stuff that we have to talk about. And I do this in a different setting, though. I just wanted to give you boom, 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 like 4 highlights here of what I'm going to teach in my class. So I go a little bit slower on that there. But I just wanted to let you know that it's a big responsibility that we have. And we got to take it very serious, because many of us believe that we're in the end times. And if we do believe that this is the end times, could be tomorrow, we don't know. We have to act like it and live like it on this side right now to make sure people are saved and get into heaven. So I just wanted to share that with you. Kiddo?
All right.
That's all I got.